knows the whole resume that you have, but I'm wondering creatively, what did the younger child version of you look like, creatively? Was she the one that was singing into the hairbrush? Was she the songwriter, or was she the antisocial one that was listening to music, planning her world domination? That was I. So
Mhm.
what did that look like for you?
I was definitely a social butterfly.
Really?
Um, Good and bad. Like it was like a good social where, I'm have a lot of friends, and then it was like the bad social where like I'm literally talking to everybody. And you know
Yeah.
how that can be when you're a child and your parents are like, oh, stop it.
Sit down.
You don't need to
Yeah.
talk to everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I was very, outspoken, always looking to have fun, always laughing, always being silly.
Yeah.
And that like just transitioned me into like being this outside junkie where I was playing outside. I had a bike. I was hanging with the boys. Like I was just
Okay.
went through the cheerleading phase. Like I did all the things I think as a young kid would do as you transition to find your true self.
Yeah.
Because it took like I think I took pieces of each of my phases of growing up, and like that really molded Delisha to be
Yeah.
who she is. Like I guarantee you, if you talk to any of my friends who grew up with me, they'll tell you I've always been the same person. Like no matter where I'm going, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always the same person. And so I'm definitely a out of the lines coloring person. I don't,
Perfect.
yeah, I don't like to put myself in a box per se when it comes to my creativity. So like I
Mm-hmm.
went through the sports phase, and I went through being forced to go through the dance, ballet, tap phase.
Oh
And
wow.
then, yeah, it
Wait,
was
you can
like
do
just this
ballet?
thing. No, absolutely not. I quit.
Okay, continue.
My sister stayed. I quit.
Okay.
Yeah, but like once I seen her doing the play and like West Side Story, I was like, I should have stayed. Dang,
Because
I
you
could
now
have
you
been
wanted to do it.
Maria. I could have been Maria. Um, but yeah, like very family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And then just again, like just staying true to myself, having fun, laughing, and that being okay.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my younger self per
Mm-hmm.
se of how I was. But I think it's just like I still see myself as a big kid. Like I'd never see myself as like getting the older spirit, the mature,
Yeah.
all of that. Like I like having fun, and I have no problem with telling people that. I know when to be serious, of course, but I just feel like we need more people to make other people smile in the world. So if that's me, then that's me.
That's perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
being this outspoken person, and how did you get into the creative industry and saying to yourself, this is where I belong? Because you talked about, trying to find your true self. How did you find out that your true self was in this industry?
Oh, that let's see. I know for a couple of years when I was in college, I just enjoyed being around music.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up joining a dance team in college just because like the vibrance and the movement and the music that came with it, and like how everybody paid attention. And when you walked in the room, people knew it. Like
Yeah.
that was a lot of my likeliness as far as college. But then it moved to concerts when we started having like those homecoming events, and it was like the big thing, and you would have these college kids that are planning it on SGA.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2 years, I believe in college, like I joined like the college paper, and I went for something with SGA just because I was like, I want to be in that field.
Yeah.
um and then like after a while, I just started to want to be more involved with things. And I remember having like the old school flip cam from a friend. I borrowed his camera, and I was just like, hey, this guy wants me to go with him to shoot Waka Flocka, and I don't have a camera, but I told him I have a camera. So like, can I borrow your
Can I borrow your camera?
camera?
Come
And
on,
like
friend.
that, yeah. And like, shout out to Reggie. But yeah, like that led me to seeing the behind the scenes concert format of things.
Yeah.
Granted, it was like a college party with a performance by somebody. It wasn't like a full concert. But when
Right.
I got my feet wet in that, like you couldn't pull them out of it. Like it became, oh, I want to interview these artists. Like, hey, let me get some behind the scenes footage. Hey, what did it take for you to book these artists? Like I started asking those questions early because
Yeah.
it was college students doing this stuff. And I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, I'm used to it being like some,
Some
higher
mega
up, big,
executive person,
yeah,
and now
yeah,
you
like
see, and you're
Diddy.
like, whoa, wait a
No,
minute.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, seeing that, it just let me know that it's possible that I could do at the age that I was at. So by the time I graduated college, I had already kind of branded, I guess, myself as a blogger, music blogger.
Yeah.
And so by the time I moved back to Nashville, because I was in Huntsville, so by the time I moved back to Nashville, I had a lot of the connections because I was going in the stores when I was home and covering the shows, or I would come back for homecoming at TSU and want to go to the shows and cover the shows. So
Mm.
it really started early for me. It just wasn't as structured. It was more so like, hey, let me write about these artists, or let me take pictures or video and kick that out on my blog site at the time.
Yeah. But there's a
And then
change
that
of
just kind of grew.
there's a change of perspective though that you get when you are the difference between somebody that's in the audience and you're just watching the performance to
Oh
somebody that's
yes.
behind the scenes and you're seeing the whole fundamentals. And I know that your mind had to be kind of like blown away. And
Mm-hmm.
even now when you go into a concert, do you have that thought process where you're, even though you're a viewer, you're like, I know this happened here, this happened there, this happened there. So
Mm-hmm.
does that happen
Mm-hmm.
for you?
Oh yes. Oh yes. It's a lot of times where I'm like, I knew I should have booked this. Because I'm just like I think hospitality matters so much.
It does. It
And then
does.
to when you follow these artists and you don't see them post about the city at all, but
Yeah.
they're in town, and it's like, man, I want they should have got that southern helping of culture. So it's a lot of times I go to concerts and I'm just like, I wish I could. I'm gonna email them next time and see if I can get involved or something. So
Man,
yeah, that's the
you
thing.
created several lanes for artists. You developed a brand plus so much more. I want to know what are some of the challenges that you went through personally and or otherwise.
I think investing time was a thing that I didn't really realize how much time needed to be invested into something.
Mm,
So early, I would just stay up all night long, be tired at work, not get things done. Like my personal life got kind of weird for a little
yeah,
while.
yeah.
And it wasn't because I didn't care. It was just because I wasn't allowing myself to slow down. Like I was like, man, I've got to
I
sleep is
gotta do
for the
this. I gotta do
week.
that. I gotta do this. I gotta do that.
Yeah, like so
Yeah,
I remember saying sleep is for the weak, and I tweeted that the other day. I was like, I can't believe I said that. Like,
I
it's just a thing
yeah,
of balance. I had no
yeah.
sense of balance for a long time. So then when I started more so realizing like, okay, I need a team. I need to be able to sleep. Like I want to be the behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
person in a lot of things. And for years I had to be the forefront. And I think that's where a lot of the knows what happened, or the sometimes I would be like, man, like people don't thank me for the stuff I do so much behind the scenes for people, and like they bash me online or something because I'm not supporting them on the forefront.
Wow.
So I think it was just more so me having to find a balance in between, like I'm a human being, but then like I'm a brand also, so I need to know how to juggle
Distinguish the
these two.
two
Yeah,
and be
distinguish
able
the
to
two.
balance them out, because I definitely deal with that. I feel like when it comes to the brand, you try to sometimes you don't try to do it, it probably just happens, but
Mm-hmm.
yourself gets so much into the brand that you don't take time for yourself, nor do you
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to kind of give yourself some grace and
Right.
realize that there is a difference and it is okay to unplug. And that
Oh,
goes
definitely.
into the other question I have for you. In an interview you talked about, the quote was, I try to do intentional things when it comes to myself as a person. So I want to know, what are those intentional things, and how did you see it as an importance to unplug, unwind, and find time for you?
Unplugging for me, one, may not necessarily look like how it does to others.
Okay.
sometimes like my unplugging could just be me going and getting in the car and driving around and screaming if I need to, or
Okay.
me, yeah, like,
Yeah.
just like talking
Yeah.
to myself. Like I do some of my best thinking in the car. And so whatever emotion comes out of that, that's just
Yeah.
the emotion. But yeah, my that's one thing. And then like my family time is top priority to me. I try really hard to not ever let anything I'm doing get in the line of my personal life, because that's important. They're always going to be there for me before and after, to
Mm-hmm.
protect the culture, all of that stuff. Um, and then just when I say being intentional, I know for one, being intentional in everything I do, that leads to the two L's in a protected culture, creating spaces intentionally
Yeah.
um, for Black and Brown people, for women of color, for, all the different demographics that sometimes go underserved or
Mm-hmm.
unnoticed. Um, and so one of the main things that I've done over the years is really try to develop myself. Like, what are some personal things that I've gone through, or some issues, or some times where I just cried about it and let it out, and how can that bleed over into making it a story or creating a moment with somebody else, so that I could let them know that, hey, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
So when that's the more intentional space when I talk about that, because that's therapeutic for me in its own. Me having certain events is for me, but I also know I'm feeding somebody else. So that
I
has
love
become a
it.
whole thing for me, is being more of a storyteller and connecting with other people,
Mm-hmm.
especially with COVID and all the things that have been
Yeah.
going on.
How crazy that has been for all of us.
Yes,
But
yes.
that's funny, because it's like you went from being this promoter and artist manager to this women's activist speaker, and this
Oof.
just cultural like, it's just, how did this shift happen, where you are from helping artists and promoting and doing the whole behind the scenes, to I'm going to speak to everybody about what is going on with all of us as Black women and as a culture. Okay. So how did that happen for you?
I think just as you grow, things become more important to you. Like I had went through the years and years and years where I was out late until 3 a.m. doing shows and making sure I sold out a concert and making sure
Yeah.
I'm up all night on the laptop. And then as you grow, some things just become a little more important. And again, that's where my storytelling happens, is my personal things. So I think it was just a transition of, because I've grown as a person, not saying anything is less important, but some things are just a little more meaningful to me. So when we talk community work, like I'm an educator first. So whether that be educating kids, or whether that be educating women, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be, educating men or artists or, kids, all of that to me is still from an educator standpoint. I feel like if you're an educator and you have that kind of, not upbringing, but you have that knowledge of being able to teach somebody something, that could spill over into so many different things. And I've always told my sister, like, I could see myself teaching people things and sharing things with people, but it might just not be in a classroom setting. Like it might be in a symposium. It may be
Yeah.
on a panel. It may be, behind the scenes at a concert, mentoring. But I think that's just one of the things that I've really gravitated to, is the storytelling and the experiences, because that's what I didn't have when I was into the shows and into the moments and all of that stuff. Like I want to have some stuff where I can go and let my hair down, and feel comfortable being in the skin I'm in. So what would that look like for a person to do it? Because I always do things thoughtfully. Like
Yeah.
I want to, what's the best way that I can get a woman to come out, let her hair down, kick it, have a drink, have food or whatever, and
Yeah.
just be at her best self. And it's like from there, stuff just started getting more important to me. And I'm like, let's do some community work. Let's get foot to pavement with a lot of things. Let's, have these discussions where we could have more resolutions versus just constant, bickering and issues and things like that. Like I'm
Truth.
kind of trying to move to, the other side of things now. So however that looks, that's just
This is
kind of
how it
how I
is.
move.
What was a rewarding moment for you as a speaker for women, as this women
Oh,
empowerment speaker? What was that moment for you?
so I had last December.
Mm-hmm.
Last December I held and it was after like things had slowly started opening back up. So it was one of those like weird feelings like, should I do an event? Should I leave it? You know, because I don't want to give anybody COVID. I don't want anybody to be exposed at my event, whatever. So
Loss
I
of
ended
taste,
up,
of smell, or anything.
right, none of that. Sis, can you taste that though? But you know, but that event in December came from my year. Like my year last year for me was very hard. It was very trying. Um, Health wise, I ran into some things. Like that's when I went through my anxiety. I
Yeah.
felt depressed. I felt like I was going backwards in life. But
Ooh,
through
comfort.
that, I felt like I had this thought, and the thought was, I want to do something where I can change all of this and take all of this energy and make it into a moment for somebody else. Using solely me being selfish, solely using it as I want to have a night with that feels a little normal.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we came up with an AMC event where we just went and watched. I think it was 39 women. I sold tickets. 39 women came and we watched Girls Trip. And you know, Girls Trip has been out for years.
Yeah,
And
it's been out
so
there for a while now.
yeah, and so it wasn't about necessarily the movie, it was just the feeling of normalcy and
Mm-hmm.
the feeling of being around other women. And we put a mental health aspect into it. You know, we gave gifts, we really celebrated each other. And so after the movie, well, right before the movie ended, a lady came up to me and she was like, you know, hey, are you going to do a speech after this? And I was like, I didn't plan on it. And she was like, you really need to speak to everybody. She was like, I can just feel that, you know, you need to talk and release something. And so I sat there and I was like, should I talk? Should I say something? And she was like, yeah, just tell everybody. So after the
Yeah.
movie, it was so loud. You know, as they run credits, it's loud in the theater, especially after Girls Trip. They're going through
Oh,
like
we
they're
all
in New
cackling and
Orleans.
everything. We having
Yeah,
all the fun. Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
got you.
So I asked everybody to come into the hallway and I just pretty much thanked them. But then I just went into the why, like why I did it. And I just had talked about like I had a lot of support that, you know, had came into play for me, friends being there for me, my health things that were going on. And I just wanted to use it as a moment. And although we sat here and watched Girls Trip together, like it hit different. Like it felt different, you know, than I've ever watched it. And then I started hearing people sniffing and people was crying. And then I was looking and people were hugging each other. And I was just like,
Oh,
okay. And like
there's
after that,
something
people were
there.
just, yeah. And people were like clapping. And
Yeah.
that, it fed me so much. That moment right there fed me. And that was a more recent event. But it's like I'm always finding myself getting fed when I can feel like I've connected with somebody else. And I know for a fact that you're leaving differently than you came.
Almost
So
definitely.
that's always been my thing. Is just, you know, I want to really provide an experience to people where they leave and they feel like, man, I'm glad I went, or I'm glad I came across, or I'm glad I, you know, went to that event, because it's too much going on in the world where you can easily get slip in the cusp of depression and anxiety and, you know, feeling alone and all of that stuff.
And
So, you
with this
know,
pandemic, it doesn't help because all
oh
you
no,
are is a lot of people are left alone at home with their thoughts.
to deal with it.
And that is the most, I told my sister this, I told her that my thoughts are the scariest things for me to be left alone with. And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, that's troubling. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but it's honesty. It's
Yeah, been
honesty. And
through it.
a lot of us deal with that. And
Mm-hmm.
we, with this pandemic, even without it, it just, you get alone with yourself and you start doubting yourself, the steps that you've taken, and it becomes just too much.
Oh yeah.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
great that you've been able to create a space where it was just it was all just chilling. It's just a time for
Mm-hmm.
fellowship, but it's a ministry at the same time, because here we
Mm-hmm.
are pouring into each other. And let's go ahead and highlight the fact that your story is a testimony,
Mm-hmm.
period. So
Mm-hmm.
you never know who you're going to touch with the story that you have and that you bring. So for you to do that and to be so vulnerable and open,
Mm-hmm.
that had to be like just a a wow moment for you. And I know
Absolutely.
you opened a lot of people up and said, "Oh my gosh, I can do this. I'm gonna be okay." You have to
Mm-hmm.
do another event like that. Are you going to do
Oh,
one?
March 28th.
There we go.
March 28th for Women's Month. Since
Oh
I
my
sent you
god,
look
I'm
the
gonna cry.
info.
I'm gonna
I
cry.
almost changed my background to it. Look in a minute. Put the flyer up.
Oh my gosh, March 28th. We have an event coming up. Tell us more about this
Mm-hmm.
event.
So it's Strong Women Lead, which is I called the last event in December Strong Women Lead, and then it just said I think it was like girls trip or something with women. And then
Mm-hmm.
so this one I still wanted to stick with it, like the Strong Women Lead, especially because it's Women's Month. And then it's called the Her Story Happy Hour. Now, 2 years ago, I did a Her Story brunch series where it
Mm-hmm.
was just all month, every Sunday. You know, you could go to this restaurant and we were celebrating each other. We spotlighted people. You know, it was just a good moment of, like you said, fellowship.
Yeah.
And so for this one, because COVID, I was like, oh, I don't want to put too much on myself to plan because it took a lot. But I want to wait till the end of the month and then it just be the like sending off of, you know, like, oh, you know, we did this. It was a good month, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so through this event, like I've partnered and got so many amazing sponsors that have come on board and are just like, you know, hey, we'll supply this, we'll do this, you know, what can you do to
Hey, sounds
help?
good. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's just, you know, it's to me, it's going to be an event that is needed again. And then we also have Victoria Butler, who is with, she's the master blender of Uncle Nearest.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to send out some things for the women, which I really shouldn't be saying this. She's going to send out some things to the women so they could make one of her drinks on site. Like
Oh, that's
everybody
dope.
make the drink. So
I love that.
it's gonna be a good
What
event.
else is next for you as all the different, I hate to say the word labels because when you, I feel
Mm-hmm.
take a moment out right quick. I hate when people say the labels with your name because for me at least, it makes me feel as if I'm limiting myself and the scope that
Right.
I'm going to. So I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
simplify the question or expand the question by saying, what else is next for you?
Mm-hmm.
And no
Um,
matter what venture.
Definitely more community work. Um, Community has just been a thing for me since I was young, like helping people, doing more, being about action with some things. So definitely a lot of community work. We're doing some things with Antioch, Tennessee right now
Okay.
through Protect the Culture, where it'll be geared towards like really helping the youth of Antioch, like helping those underserved areas of Antioch, because Antioch is honestly a really big melting pot of so many different ethnicities,
It
cultures,
is.
languages, you know. So
Yes.
that's one of the things at the forefront for me. But then also just again, like I've really told myself, you know what, I want to plan whatever it is that I wrote down during COVID. Like I want to put some things into motion this year, thoughtfully, of course, because we're still in a pandemic, and I'm definitely not going to be the one mask off anywhere.
Heck no.
But
Look, I like the
just
smell. I think it's
right,
nice.
right,
It tastes
exactly,
well.
and taste. Yeah, but just continuing to create, you know, make spaces for who knows, teens, kids, women, men. That's really becoming a thing for me, and I've always said that I could see myself doing it for others, whether
Yeah.
that be artists. Like, let me plan your listening party. Let me plan your album release, or let me plan the event that you know you want to do thoughtfully, but you don't have the mind capacity to do it because you're the creative. So that's kind of the lane that I'm beginning to shift into, is being definitely behind the scenes on a lot of things, but also just continuing to create those moments for and with other people.
What is the reward for you after doing everything that you do for every creative, after getting every story out there for different people? I'm not going to just specify women, I'm saying people in general. What is that big award for you?
I think, you know what? Um, Honestly, I have made more contacts with so many valuable people
Yeah.
through me simply wanting to do things like listen or tell stories or have events and things like that. And people see what you have going on. And then it just takes that one person to be like, you know, hey, I like what you have going on. Like, how can I pour into you in different ways, you know, and help you continue to do this? Because we all know with one, a pandemic, it's hard to do things like that, you know, and
Most
if you're not
definitely.
financially up there and got everything, lined up, it's been a trip for people. Even with me doing concerts and shows and things,
Yep.
we took a hit because it removed one of the biggest events that we did, Nashville's, out from under us. And, me and my friend had said, hey, we're going to quit our jobs and do this full time. So I'm thank God that I didn't quit, my job, and I still have my benefits and I still have these little
Come on,
things that I could
benefits.
do. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Got too much going on. But just being able to say, like, I do still have some type of stability. So, when people see that in you, they want to pour more into you. And that's been a reward to me that I've not been shameful about. Like, I'm very blessed to have people want to pour into me after they've seen the work I've been doing, because for years I was doing the work and I was just doing the work,
Yeah.
so that's been one thing that I've really felt like that's more of a rewarding factor for me now, is people pouring back into me as I poured into, other people for years. And then two, just knowing that I'm doing something different and I'm creating change and I'm allowing people to be in their own skin
Yeah.
in whatever I'm involved in. I tell people all the time, like, my events are not events, they're experiences, because you
Oof.
feel when you're there. Like, if I tell anybody, if you can make people feel something, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So that's what I felt that's rewarding for me, is one, having things pour back into me, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be other people or people wanting to assist or help. And then two, just knowing that I'm creating moments, actual moments for people, and it's fun doing it. Like, I love doing it. It takes definitely a lot of stress to do
Yeah.
it, but after the fact, you're just like, man,
It's done. You did
I
it.
did that. So
I
yeah.
did that.
And you
And you
feel good, and it
celebrate
makes you want to do
yourself.
it more. Yeah, it makes you
Yeah.
want to do it more. I celebrate myself. If I can travel, I do that. And just enjoying my own celebrating myself has been a big thing. So I'm when we talk about rewards, I could go on with that forever, because I found so many different ways to reward myself and to feel like, oh man, that was a good thing I did.
Rewarding
Okay.
yourself, celebrating yourself, giving yourself all the claps and hellos and hallelujahs or whatever is because, like, I know for me, I'm my own worst critic and my own worst supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And a
Yep.
lot of people struggle with that. And so to have someone like you say, hey, I understand, sis, it's okay. And there's a way
Mm-hmm.
out of it. You got this.
Mm-hmm.
It's refreshing. So I
Mm-hmm.
just appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I think now I just need to ask, how can somebody connect with you? How can they become a writer for you with two L's on the cloud? How can they be an artist, for you? Like, how can we
Mm-hmm.
connect with you?
Oh, so two L's on a cloud is definitely looking for help, whether it be through writers or photographers, videographers, because I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, man, it was good when I was doing it solo for a while. But I just can't anymore.
We need help,
And I
right?
had a team, and I've had, people help and things like that. But just over the years, it went from like a team factor to, like, people moving, relocating, growing in their own craft, to now it's just like back to me. And I'm just like, man, it's hard to just do it. And the expectation is so high for two L's that I'm just
Yeah.
like, ooh, I got to keep up. So definitely, like, if you're interested in being a writer, you're interested in, getting in the event field of things, needels@gmail.com. Two L's on a cloud on Instagram and Twitter is the contact. And for me personally, like, at two L's on a cloud on, I think, all platforms, no, not at two L's on a cloud, at it's two L's is the best way to
They
contact me.
can also find more about the event in March. How can we find out more about that?
So Strong Women Lead HH, which is happy hour, hh.eventbrite.com. And it has all the description, ticket link, all of the information on it.